Well, let's return to our top story now, and here in Nigeria, moves are underway by the central bank to ease restrictions on foreign exchange. Banks had been required to allocate 60% of foreign exchange purchases to specific sectors, causing a shortage in the economy. This requirement has now been lifted, and in order to ease things even further, banks have been directed to open retail outlets at all major airports. Well, I'm joined now by Tope Fasua, the CEO of Global Analytics. Welcome to the show, Tope.
Hi, good morning.
Right. As we know, things have been quite bad. Nigerians have been struggling to access these foreign exchanges. Do you believe that with these restrictions being eased, things are going to be better? How long will we have to wait to see an impact on the economy?
Right. I think it's going to be much, much better. And I think perhaps in the next week or thereabout, things should ease out a little bit, because it's just all about meeting the retail requirements of people, well, Nigerians are quite an itinerant people, so we do a lot of travel, people are studying abroad. I mean, the shock of the previous policy is what made there to be a huge premium between the official and the black market, and most retail users had to go to the black market, and then that existed about 200 naira premium between the two. Basically, the job of the central bank in this instance, in other countries perhaps it's not like that, in more developed countries and so on. But in a place like Nigeria, the function of the central bank is to look at the different categories of uses for the foreign exchange. I mean, why do people need to sell the naira to buy the dollar or the pounds, as the case may be? What do they use it for? So, of course, there's a huge chunk which is for the trade. There's a huge chunk for importing of, if you like, equipment and so on. And of course, there's the aspect that goes for education, for leisure travels and so on. Now, there is a perception management issue, so it's very critical. Because if you can't meet those retail needs, then there's a rush into the black market for sundry purposes, even for, if you like, for speculative purposes, and then of course the margin, the margin or the premium appears. I think this time around, they're doing the right thing, and I think they can do it because the prices of crude oil has recovered a little bit. We've been able to accrete a little bit more to the reserves. Nudging about 30 billion now. I think it's probably at 30.05 billion thereabout. It's not a lot of money, but it's a bit of comfort, and the central bank decides that, okay, now let's do this.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really profound. If the banks are able to move quickly to the airports and people traveling can easily change money,
well,
we've actually operated this illegal, funny, informal system of bureau de change. We had 3,300 bureau de change in Nigeria. It's unbelievable. The entire United Kingdom, the last time I checked, had about 125. Different brands. Those are the money change people you see on Oxford Circles and so on. We have 3,300 of them in Nigeria, and it's unbelievable. And of course, many of them don't even exist on ground.
Yeah.
And it became just a game. Everybody wanted a license. Everybody got the money from the central bank at the official rate and found a way to offload into the market. I mean, it couldn't continue forever.
Well, let's pick up a little bit on the retail outlets that are going to be opening in the airports, because that is quite interesting, because we've seen things have been really quite particularly bad for travellers, especially if you say they're struggling to get dollars and things. So how much of a difference is it going to make to have the access to these funds when you're actually in airports?
First, that's great, and a foreigner, given, of course, the fact that Nigerians, we've got a reputation, people. I was just reading an article recently about how someone stole Professor Paul Collier's bag. He came around to do, Paul Collier is in Oxford, very internationally famous, and then someone moved his bag, and he's looking for his passport as we speak, his British passport. So, but I think foreigners will be much more comfortable coming in and saying that there's a bank there that can do this transactions for them. They don't care what the rates are. When you approach a bank, you sort of believe what they've put up there on the screen. And even if you're going to lose one or two, beeps and thereabouts, you're fine with that. So it's going to be tremendously important. But I think, again, they mentioned some of the funny restrictions on the cards, right?
Yeah.
Very important stuff,
Yeah, they're restricted to, is it $100 limit per month?
Per month. That's
credit and debit cards.
That's nonsense, really, but now that they're removing it, I think, it sends a very strong signal. I believe that if, and you know, the thing about giving the banks more of these opportunities, this, for me, let the banks make a little bit more money, legitimately.
So the limits on
you
the
know,
cards are also being lifted as well as the...
Yes, you know, even if they don't fully lift it, but $100 a month sounds
Just
very
up the limit a
ridiculous.
bit.
Exactly, up it a little bit. And you know, so if you can take out some of those things, get the banks to deploy very quickly, bring some confidence back into the market. I think, you know, yes, I mean, we have to live with this now. At 375 naira to the dollar is much better than 516.
Of course.
You know, and falling. Of course, to close, I'll probably say that there's the three what they call three generations of currency crisis. The first generation of currency crisis says you don't fix your currency, right? That was what happened with Britain. I think it was 1992. George Soros, was it 2002? Thereabout, made £1 billion on them. You know, so you don't fix it. You don't even say, look, we're going to defend this. We're going to defend the currency. The second generation is very important. It says that what's called self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't, when people start to speculate that the currency is going down, it will go down. And that's what has happened in Nigeria. A lot of the so-called experts in the market have been predicting that the Naira is short of this. I personally don't believe that the demand is that robust. This economy hasn't even started as far as I'm concerned. You know, so a lot of the monies that was actually allocated to the manufacturing industry, you could see on a weekly basis so much of imports of equipment, and you're wondering when this is going to end and how this is not translating into so much production. So people just found a way around it. But I think that the central bank believes that they can actually go after the banks better because we've got about 25, 26 of them. Then go after 3,400 below the change. I mean,
it's much simpler for them.
Absolutely.
Now, the central bank as well, they have said that they don't expect retail transactions to exceed the 20% above the interbank market rate. Now, you've made several references to the black market during our conversation here. Do you think that's a realistic expectation? Will that hold, or will people find a way around it?
I think it's realistic, really, because especially what concerns the users the most is the ease of, you know, doing the transaction. Yeah. So if we can actually go to any, I mean, what used to happen before now was you took a request to a bank to pay your school fees, for example, and nobody should say this is an elite thing, you know. People are doing little courses on EDX, on Future Learn, you know. This is the age of the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, all of these things have been democratized, you know. So you want to pay just the £40 to get your certificate on EDX? I do a lot of those courses all around the world. I mean, are you saying our youth should stop developing themselves and their minds, you know? And you can't even get that done. And when you go to the bank, it takes 6 months for you to get your school fees paid. You know, and that's not going to happen. So if this can work and the banks can actually get this done without hassle, as it used to be, all right, as it's always been in Nigeria before this crisis, which was, in my view, mismanaged because they thought that they could run the economy with braggadocio. You know, you don't just say, listen, it's none of my business. But I think right now there are other people in the helm of affairs who actually kind of understand the need that, listen, the world is not going to collapse. You know, you have to do what you have to do. I mean, if people need things for legitimate 180, 70 million thereabouts living in Nigeria, very restless people, ambitious people who want to get things done, all you have to do is hanker that passion and bring it to do something. But if you make it illegitimate for people to seek, you know, to have ambition, illegitimate for people to go for schooling, illegitimate for people to travel around the world. I mean, when you travel, I mean, it is said that traveling is perhaps the best education you can get. But what we've seen in the last few years is a scenario where, I mean, the last few months and thereabout, where that was actually made illegitimate, and then instead of actually getting a good result, we had a worse result. Increases in crime, a lot of despondency, companies closing down, people losing their jobs. It's unbelievable. All right, so all we could have had was a positive outlook at things, and I think this new policy is kind of positive.
And of course, it does affect not just Nigerians in Nigeria, but Nigerians around the world. You picked up there in a few points about people have been struggling to pay for school fees, you know, university fees, if they're studying in foreign countries. There's also been some problems paying for healthcare, hasn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, right now we have our president somewhere in the UK treating himself. Yeah. People couldn't understand that. You know, I mean, if you're saying that this is illegal and people shouldn't, I mean, you don't care how to get paid, how to pay their health, and then you up and go treat yourself. You know, I mean, we're talking about leadership by example. You know, so that's a problem. But whereas, of course, there's a point at which you have to start to look inwards. the point is that many times we never learn from this kind of crisis. We have to begin to look inwards at some point in time to begin to create things for ourselves, and but sometimes we get kind of fatalistic. We do these things, we go to the extreme bad, and then when it's time, when the money is there, we go to the extreme. I mean, some guy put $9.8 million in some village, yeah? I mean, $9.8 million in cash. Imagine if that kind of money was actually infused back into the system,
Yeah.
right? Imagine if that money wasn't stolen. And I mean, there's a lot more people who would sit on those kind of stashes. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't call it corruption, it's insanity. If you ask me, yes, it's insanity. I mean, what's the point of keeping so much money you're never going to spend in a place that's so derelict? And I tell people, like, the world is impatient. The world is not going to wait for Nigeria. The way we're running our system, we don't behave like we know what to do with the country. And so basically, but I think this is good, but I would say they should take it a step further. Have we documented the lessons of the recent past? Okay, those things we don't want to spend money on, like importing toothpicks or food and all that. What have we done to ensure we have local capacity and all of that kind of thing?
Well, I'm sure these measures will make a difference, and let's hope they do.
Hopefully.
Tope Fasua, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll take a short break now, but do stay with us. There's plenty more ahead, and do also tune in later this week for an Arise Oscars special as our team in Los Angeles brings you the frills and spills from the red carpet.